Right, hello everybody, Adam Clery from FourFourTwo here, and that was dreadful. Now, full disclosure, before we start, it is okay to have a bad result in the group stage of an international tournament. It's okay to have a bad performance in the group stage of an international tournament. But as a man who has stood various places over the last few months and told you that there's good things about this England side, it would be naive of me in the extreme to try and paint that as anything other than completely minging. Right, so Gareth Southgate went with the same 11 that, how can I put this, got them over the line against Serbia. You had Rice and 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓 as this double pivot. You had 𝗕𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔-𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗠 as the 10. You had Phil Foden stuck out on the left, and it pretty much just picks itself from there. And just like the Serbia game, England took an early lead, then appeared to just sort of sit off and invite the pressure. But unlike the Serbia game, Denmark were able to take this system, observe its many flaws, and then pull its pants completely down. And there are a number of places I could start with just what was wrong here, but the best place to do so is the very beginning. So literally, from the kickoff, England go extremely long, they commit men forward, but they don't win that ball, and 2 kicks of the football later, Denmark are running in behind. And then from that running in behind, England scramble back, they try their best to get organised, and yet somehow Denmark end up with a shooting chance on the edge of the box with this player here in this much space. Now I'm going to need you to remember A, the words kicking long, and B, the words this much space, because they're going to be a theme. So as a first little graphical offering, I'm going to show you the average positions of that England starting 11 across the game, and just have a moment to take that in, and you will no doubt observe that it appears to be incredibly scrunched together in the middle. It's neither one thing nor the other. Like on the one hand, it looks like a team that wants to play on the front foot and is pushing forward because the defence are so high, but on the other hand, it looks like a team that wants to sit off and sort of be defensive because the attackers are so deep. And that's pretty much a fairly good summation of what England were doing here. When they had the ball, they attempted to move it up the pitch incredibly slowly, like a possession team would, but then when they lost the ball, there was no sort of fight, no bite, no attempt to win it back in dangerous areas, which is a huge shock because in every single warm-up game, England were this aggressive, high-pressing side. We thought that was what they were trying to be. But yet, England's press in this game had all the intensity, it had all the enthusiasm of me trying to do my emails on a hangover. But this is the first one. It's literally in the first minute. Denmark have a throw-in, and England successfully force them to throw backwards. This is the moment you're waiting for your high-pressing team. So if you've played football, you know when someone throws the ball into you, it's actually a really difficult sort of pass to control. That goes backwards towards the fullback, and Phil Foden here is on it. He knows they're in a vulnerable situation, tries to get it. Now this defender's dropped off loads, that's fairly sensible, that's what you expect them to do, but from here, you now have to lock on, you have to cut out all of his options. But yet, when he goes to pass the ball, look at his options. He's not forced to go back to the goalkeeper. Harry Kane has gingerly not jogged out to the man, he's jogged to sort of cut out this passing lane, but he can go here, and he can go here, and he can go here. Now, when the Danish defender on the far side receives it, look at the space he has. Like, Phil Foden was doing the closing down on the right-hand side, but he's supposed to be the left-sided attacker. There's nobody out here to put any pressure on the ball. And because he's got all that space, he then runs with it from the edge of his own box to the edge of England's final third. And by the time he gets there, there's only Declan Rice anywhere near him. He gets drawn away from the man he's marking to just put some kind of pressure on. Because that's a 2-on-1, it's child's play for the pair of them to work it into a crossing position. Now, nothing comes of it, but that's the kind of thing that should be a warning sign. And just to show you what a press should look like in this situation, about a minute later, England have the ball in the exact same position that Danish defender has it, and look at the lack of time they're allowed to have here. Like, Denmark don't really successfully take the ball off them, but they stop them playing forward in any meaningful way. Like, Foden gets it, he turns straight away, everything in front of him is blocked off. There's aggression from these Danish players. And just in the exact same way that the Danish fullback got the ball in a lot of space, they work it out to Kyle Walker, who's the unmarked man, but when he gets his head up, Look at the options available to him. They've shut off every single thing he can possibly do in that situation. He manages to get it into 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗧𝗏, but he's got his back to goal. The defender is touched tight to him. He doesn't allow him to turn. He forces him to put it back into this danger area. And that whole just vibe of a lack of intensity was the entire theme throughout the match. Like, this is later in the first half. Denmark, they've got their equaliser. They're now getting on the ball. England could be aggressive. They could push out. They could really impose themselves on this game. And yet, just watch the lack of action from England's players here as Denmark get it into their half. Like, it's clear from the shape that Foden, Bellingham and Kane are supposed to be the first line of pressure. They were sort of playing as like a three up front, but just look how easily Denmark find it to play the ball through this line. They go out wide to draw Foden out there and also create the angle here. And you can even see Trent Alexander-Arnold pointing like someone has to lock on to that player. Either Kane's got to drop and follow him, which is obviously a total waste of Harry Kane, or you've got to have someone like Declan Rice jump up to press, and they don't do either, and Denmark just get past that first line like it's not even there. And what happens next, right, comes about 30 or 40 seconds later. I'm not going to show you the whole clip, but Denmark don't lose the ball in that time. They just keep recirculating and holding on to it, and eventually they find a pass through, and what do they manage to find? Space on the edge of the box. Now, Phil Foden's name might come up a couple of times in this video, but I just want to stress, not putting this on him or saying it's his fault or he's making mistakes. He's clearly been told to play a lot narrower. But because of that, it meant that Denmark had all the space in the world to play it out wide. So you can see here they do that, and because this is not blocked off by Foden, it forces Trippier to break his line to stop the pass coming in. But by doing that, it allows them to pull Declan Rice out of position to cover, leaving Alexander-Arnold all on his own. And so when they get turned and they get that space on the edge of the box again, look where they've put Declan Rice, look where they've put Harry Kane, look where they've put Kieran Trippier, and they get another really good chance off it. And now that we've learned these two lessons about a lack of intensity comparative to Denmark and space at the end of the box, would you like to put 2 and 2 together and work out how Denmark score their goal? England have a throw-in, and because Denmark have got them nicely boxed in, they've got all their options cut off, Harry Kane, of all people, is forced to drop into sort of this like left wing-back position to receive the ball, but he's not even allowed to do that freely. He's put under pressure, and he just makes the kind of decision that a centre-forward is likely to make in a defensive position, and he hoofs it into the middle of the pitch. And yes, you've got to give Denmark credit here because it is an incisive turnover and it's a brilliant, brilliant hit. But given that this is in England's defensive third, from a position when they had the ball, look how close they are to getting any of these players in front of that shot. They haven't got a chance. That's the kind of thing that can happen. You can't just be set up the wrong way. Your game plan can be slightly wrong. It's the sort of thing you hope that when you get in at half time, you sit down and you address. Like, lads, we're having a real problem playing out from the back here. Let's not invite a press on if we don't have to. Let's set up in a way that we can play a bit longer, a little bit more direct. Let's stop them pressing us if we possibly can. But England just did not learn that lesson. Second half, they get penned into their own corner. Declan Rice once again has found himself drawn out in that left back area to try and cover some of that space. And he's put under enough pressure again that he just sort of hooks it into the middle of the pitch because there's nothing else on. Denmark cut it out. There's a bit of a scramble. They clearly want it more in that situation. And lo and behold, I don't know how many times I have to say in this video, Christian Eriksen finds himself in loads of space on the edge of the box, and he should do better with that shot. So, okay, I'm aware I'm sort of ranting here and I'm just repeating myself. You get the picture, right? England couldn't play out from the back, and they weren't pressing Denmark, and they were giving them all this space on the edge, right? That's in your head, right? So why was that happening? Why was a team as good as England unable to play through Denmark? Why was it unable to press them in the final third? And the answer simply is personnel. And I need to just give you this disclaimer again, because whenever you criticize a player on YouTube, you get people who are like, why are you blaming it all on him when it's this person's fault, it's this person's fault? This is nobody's fault. This is just simply what was happening. This is Declan Rice, who I like. Remember, we've said a lot of nice things about Declan Rice on the channel this year. This is Declan Rice's pass map from that game. When you play Rice and Alexander-Arnold in central midfield, it is the responsibility of one of them to be taking the ball off the back four, to be making that first pass out of defence. Now, Alexander-Arnold, he wants to be here. He wants to be doing damage in the final third of the pitch. He's got killer balls in his locker, so that's how you use him. So naturally, it's then Rice who has to do the classic number 6 work. And if you are an Arsenal fan or you watched Arsenal this season, you'll know that rough run of form they went on, we talked about it on the channel, was down to them relying on Declan Rice to be that exact player. You let him get forward of the ball, you let him carry it, you give him a bit of space, you let him sort of be that sort of advanced number 8. He's world class, he's majestic, but this is not his game because that incisive pass through a press, the thing you have to get right, is not in his locker. And so if you look, you'll see he's capable of being very neat and tidy. He can receive it, he can give it, he can move it around, he can circulate the ball. He's very good at that, but just look for yourself. How many of these are forwards? How many of them would break a line of pressure? How many of them would take Danish players out the game? It's virtually none. And we saw this with Arsenal this season. When you put Declan Rice in this position, when you stop him playing his game and you force him to play this game, 2 things happen. First of all, you end up going backwards and then having to go long because you've lost all of your options. And then when you do finally get it in the final third and you've moved up the pitch, you kind of end up horseshoeing around with not a lot of movement in front of you because you haven't got that pass. And these are all of England's unsuccessful passes in that match. And to be fair, it's not a lot of them. They weren't giving the ball away way too much, but just look at how many of these are long from deep areas. These were all a result of them not being able to break the line of Danish pressure and panicking and humping it upfield instead. And when that happens, this happens as well. This is Harry Kane's heat map. This is everywhere he was able to impact the game. Look how few times they're able to get him the ball in an area where he can do damage, and how many times instead he has to drop into the middle third to try and receive a long ball. He has to drop out to the flanks to try and relieve a bit of pressure. When you don't work at the back, you will not work at the front. And I think what maybe worried me worst of all about that match is that England is still a really good team. They're still unbelievable talent in that 11. So even when they're not playing that well, they're still capable of getting into good positions, right? It was what they did when they got into those positions. Now, this is in the opening sort of 2 or 3 minutes again. Bukayo Saka gets the ball here, and just honestly tell me, what are his options here? Like, I know in the last video we said that you need to have players moving away from you. You can't be congesting the same spaces like Bellingham and Foden occasionally do. But just this is the extreme opposite of that. He has nothing on short. His overlap is already offside and is trotting back. There's nobody in the right-hand half space offering him maybe a 1-2 to cut inside. There's no available cross. There's nothing he can do there, but just hope he beats that player one-on-one. But again, that can happen. You get in at half-time, you address it, you fix it, you make sure it doesn't happen again. This is from the second half. Now they've actually got bodies in the box, but tell me, what is Bukayo Saka's option here? He's got 3 players attacking the goal, but they're all on the same line. He can only go past this player and try and put a cross in across the front of the goal. There's no option for him to come back. There's no overlap. There's nobody at the edge of the box. He's only got one option. And that's an option, by the way, that depends on him, A, beating this man one-on-one, which is a rarer thing in football than you think, and B, the man marking the near post not reading this and just blocking the cross out. And I mean, Christ, just count the numbers in this picture. How many attacks do you see scored in football when you've got a 4-on-7? Right. No more graphs, no more overlays on the pitch, no data, no nothing like that. I just want to talk to you. I have been, for a number of years now, quite a staunch defender of Gareth Southgate as the England manager. I'm aware of his faults, I'm aware of his flaws. I don't think he's perfect or brilliant by any stretch of the imagination, but to me, he symbolised a major and vital cultural shift in how the England team works. I am of an age where I grew up watching Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard, Rooney, Owen, going to all these tournaments and could not for the life of me understand why England did not win everything. But then of course, you know, you get a little bit older, you understand football a different way, and it's obvious, of course those teams weren't going to win everything. You can't just stick all these great players in an 11, in a lineup, and just magically expect it to work. The reason we were getting beat off these teams that didn't have the same stars we had was because they were just better organised. They had a better plan. And that's why for the last couple of years, when people were pulling their hair out over Henderson always getting picked and Phillips always been in the team and he always picked Harry Maguire even when he's crap for Manchester United, I was always just like, well, yeah, because that's how you build a national side. It's not about having the best possible players and hoping the system figures it out, but neither is it about having this really clever system and just picking the 11 players that'll make it work in spite of the talent you've got available. It's about getting the balance between the two right. You identify a couple of brilliant players who can work together in a particular system, and then you build around that. And historically at tournaments, that's what England have done. Like, you look at the England team that got to the final of the Euros, and the back five, they were in perfect synergy. They played together really well, but you had Henderson, you had Rashford, you even had Mason Mount, players who were in that 11 in spite of there being way better talent behind them on the bench because they were making it all work. But now I look at this England team and I see Harry Kane up front, who is undoubtedly the greatest goal scorer of his generation, coming off an incredible season with his club side, but every time England try and press, he just looks completely lost at sea. I see Phil Foden, who pretty much dragged Manchester City to the Premier League title in the absence of Kevin De Bruyne this season, all the way on the left, leaving huge spaces on that side as he comes in to try and affect the play. I see Declan Rice, who was my pick for PFA Player of the Year, playing in the exact one role that did not work for him at Arsenal this season. And that is what really worries me about this England side, because it feels to me like we're watching that quote-unquote golden generation again. This is undoubtedly, I think, the 11 most talented players on the field at this European Championships, but they're also the 11 that look the least organised. Like, the reality is, you can't have it all. Like, if you want to defend deep and be this counter-attacking side, then Declan Rice is not your number pick in the 6 role. You need somebody who's going to be really good under pressure and play those incisive passes. But if you want to be an aggressive, high-pressing side, then Harry Kane's not your centre forward. You need to dominate possession and supply him with loads of chances. Like, look at France. Right now they're playing Rabiot, who just had a really weird season at Juventus, and N'Golo Kante, who went to Saudi Arabia while they're leaving Tchouaméni and Camavinga on the bench. That is unthinkable for an England team to do something that's sensible. But I do desperately want to try and end on some kind of a positive, right? This is still, like I said at the start of the video, just a bad performance, just a bad result in the group stage of an international tournament. And you've seen that countless times. The last time England had a boring 1-0 win and then a desperately miserable draw in the second game, they got to the final. So there is a chance this does just click in the third game, and then by the knockouts, when they play the really big teams, they step it up a gear. But I cannot come away from that Denmark match and have anything other than enormous alarm bells ringing behind me. But yes, that's enough, because as you can see, I've been in the sun all day and I really do need to go and have a lie down now. So if you watched that game, if you're an England fan, if you're just anybody with a pulse, please do let us know in the comments. A, how you feel about that game. B, how you feel about the rest of the tournament. And C, what would your solution be? What's your 11? Who needs to change personnel-wise? How should they structure it differently? We genuinely do read it all. It helps us get the sort of the pulse of the nation. So it's all very welcome in the comments. And more importantly than that, please do subscribe to us here on FourFourTwo. We're trying to break all manner of records during the Euros, and we're sort of on our way to doing that. So if you do enjoy this, or you'd like to see some more of it, this button here is your friend. It does massively help us out, and hopefully, because the content is something you enjoy, you get a gift back for free. But of course, if you just want to go on social media and be like, sorry, aren't you the guy that said this was all going to be fine? Aren't you the guy that said there was going to be this great high pressing side? You dickhead, you've ruined my summer. There it is, at Adam Clery on Instagram, on Twitter, on pretty much everything. I can take it. But until next time, though, I just genuinely, truly, honestly hope it just all finally works. I have been Adam Clery. This has been FourFourTwo. Happy Euros, everybody. Ooh, and I'll see you soon. Bye.